When I put up a security camera, my neighbor smashed it and claimed I was stalking him. The judge bought it, and I lost my right to record. But then I found his confession in a DM to my ex, and I copied it to every legal contact I could find. I was standing in front of the judge in a packed Cincinnati courtroom when my neighbor, Mark, looked straight at me, smirked, and said, "He's obsessed with me, Your Honor. I just want to feel safe." Safe. That word almost made me laugh out loud. Because 3 weeks earlier, I'd watched him sprint across our shared driveway with a baseball bat raised over his head, screaming like a man who'd lost his mind, and smash my brand new security camera clean off the siding of my house. I didn't even get a chance to yell before he hit it again, a clean, practiced swing, and the camera spun off into the bushes. Then he looked right at me, pointed the bat at my chest, and shouted, "I warned you. Stop watching me." I hadn't been watching him. Hell, I barely even spoke to him. The camera wasn't even pointed at his property. It was angled at my driveway because someone had been rummaging through my car at night. But he didn't care about that. He knew exactly what he was doing. Later that same day, a sheriff's deputy served me with paperwork on my own porch, a restraining order request. According to his written statement, I had installed multiple hidden surveillance devices to stalk and monitor him, and he feared for his personal safety and psychological well-being. There were no hidden devices. I had one visible camera. One. Still, standing there in that courtroom, I watched the judge flip through the folder of printed screenshots Mark had brought, photos he'd pulled from God knows where, some of which weren't even my property. And when the judge looked up at me, her expression told me everything before she spoke. "Until this case is resolved," she said, "you are not permitted to record video or audio outdoors on your property." Just like that. I lost my right to protect my own home. Meanwhile, Mark stood there with that smug, satisfied look, like he'd just pulled off the world's easiest magic trick. And the worst part, nobody believed me when I tried to explain who he really was. Not the judge, not the deputy, not even a few neighbors who had known him longer than they'd known me. "He's harmless," one of them whispered to me outside. "Maybe you two just need to talk it out." Number talking wasn't going to fix this. Because I knew something they didn't. Mark liked to push boundaries until someone snapped back. He'd burned through 3 landlords before buying the house next to mine. He'd gotten into screaming matches with delivery drivers. He'd threatened a teenager for parking slightly over the line on the street. And for some reason, I had become his new obsession. The restraining order disabled the one thing I had protecting me. He knew it, and the night after the hearing, he walked past my house slow as hell, staring at my front door like he was daring me to come out. It should have ended there, with me stuck and powerless. But everything changed 2 days later when my ex, someone I hadn't spoken to in months, messaged me out of nowhere. She sent one screenshot, just one, a Facebook DM from Mark. And the subject line alone almost made my stomach drop through the floor. It was his confession, word for word, sent to her by mistake. And when I read what he wrote, why he did, what he planned next, everything inside me went cold. Because hidden in that message was something I never expected to see, exactly how to destroy him. And I did. But first, I had to copy that DM too. Before any of this blew up, before courtrooms and deputies and smashed cameras, my relationship with Mark was nothing more than a polite nod across the driveway. I moved into my house in Westwood, on the west side of Cincinnati, about 4 years ago. It wasn't fancy, but it was the first place I owned outright. I'd put my savings into it. My plan was simple. Keep to myself, work my job, slowly fix the place up, and maybe, finally, have some peace. For the first year, that's pretty much how it went. I kept my lawn trimmed, I helped the older couple across the street shovel their walkway in winter, and I waved at Mark whenever we both happened to be outside. He almost never waved back. He usually just squinted at me like he was trying to figure out if he knew me from somewhere. He worked odd hours. Some nights he'd pull into the driveway at 3 a.m., slam the car door, and stomp inside like someone had personally offended him during the drive home. Other nights he'd be sitting on his porch, drinking straight from a bottle while scrolling through his phone. I heard yelling sometimes, but I couldn't always tell if he was yelling at someone on the phone, or at the TV, or at himself. Still, he never bothered me directly, not at first. Things changed last winter, right after I caught someone trying to open my car door around 2 in the morning. I'd heard the sound, flipped on the porch light, and watched a silhouette bolt down the street. That shook me up. Crime in the neighborhood had been creeping up, and I'd been putting off installing cameras for months. The next weekend, I finally bought one of those basic security cameras. Nothing fancy, just something to cover the driveway and my front door. I mounted it facing my property. It recorded maybe 5 feet of the street, but only because it had to in order to catch the cars. The day after I put it up, I noticed Mark watching me through his blinds. I didn't think much about it. Nosy neighbors exist everywhere. But later that night, as I took out the trash, he stepped out of his house and said, "You filming me?" I told him no, just my property. He stared at me for a long, uncomfortable minute, like he was waiting for me to say something else. Then he muttered something under his breath and went back inside. The next morning, I found deep scratches on the side of my car. I'm not stupid, I know correlation doesn't equal proof, but the timing was suspicious. When I brought it up to him, he laughed in my face and said, "If I wanted to mess with you, you'd know." That stuck with me. After that, every little thing he did felt intentional. The trash bags he accidentally left over the property line. The way he parked inches from my driveway. The loud conversations on his porch where my name popped up just loud enough for me to hear through my window. I started keeping a notebook of incidents, thinking if he ever crossed a line, I'd have a record. But the real shift happened 2 months later, when my ex, Lauren, moved out. Our breakup wasn't dramatic, we just weren't working anymore, but for some reason, after she left, Mark got bolder. He started walking closer to my house. He lingered in his yard every time I stepped outside. He acted like my presence was some personal offense. And when I finally installed that camera, it was like lighting a fuse. He didn't confront me. He didn't warn me. He didn't even file the restraining order first. He went straight to violence, smashing the camera like he'd been waiting for an excuse. At the time, I thought it was about paranoia or control. I had no idea it went so much deeper than that. No idea there was an entire backstory on his end, a twisted one, and that I was already part of it long before he broke my camera. But I'd learned soon enough. After the camera incident, everything between me and Mark went from tense to toxic. It didn't happen all at once. It was this slow, grinding escalation, like he was testing the limits of how far he could push me now that the court had basically handed him the upper hand. The night after the hearing, I barely slept. Every noise made me think he was outside again. Every car that drove past made me want to check the window, even though I legally couldn't record anything. I felt stripped bare. My house was supposed to be my safe place, and now a judge had decided that my neighbors' feelings mattered more than my security. The next morning, I found cigarette butts scattered on my porch. I don't smoke. I don't even know anyone who does, but I knew who it was. The message wasn't subtle. A few days later, someone left an empty beer bottle balanced on the hood of my car. Again, no proof, but the smirk I caught on Mark's face when I picked it up told me everything. He was taunting me, daring me to lash out, daring me to violate the restraining order so he could drag me back to court. And each time I swallowed it, I tried to go through the proper channels. I called the non-emergency police line, explained what was happening. They sent a patrol car to do a walk-by. That's it. They told me, "Well, without video, there's not much we can do." Yeah, ironic. I talked to a lawyer. He said it would be a long climb to overturn the judge's temporary order, especially since Mark had framed the whole thing as a mentally distressed neighbor feeling targeted. He suggested keeping a log of everything and avoiding him at all costs. Avoid him, he was everywhere. One night around 11 p.m., I heard something hit the side of my house hard. When I stepped outside with a flashlight, I found a rock lying on my walkway. My stomach twisted. If I still had the camera, I could have caught whoever threw it, but the order made me defenseless. It got worse. A week after that, I caught Mark standing in the middle of my driveway at 2 a.m., staring at my front door like he was waiting for it to open. I didn't go outside, I just watched from behind the curtain, phone in hand, ready to call the police. He eventually walked back to his house, slow and casual, like he owned the place. My friends told me to move. Even my sister said, "He's not stable, you need to get out of there." But I wasn't about to let some psycho neighbor push me out of my own home. I refused to become another story where the bully wins because no one wants to deal with him. Still, the isolation was real. Every day felt like I was living inside a pressure cooker. I stopped inviting people over. I parked closer to the house. I double-checked the locks 3 times before bed. And through all of this, I kept thinking about why he targeted me in the first place. Why me and not one of the other neighbors? Why smash my camera? Why lie in court? Why escalate? I didn't have answers. Not then. But I was about to get them. Because after 2 weeks of this hell, Lauren, the ex I hadn't spoken to since she moved out, sent me that DM screenshot that froze my blood. And something in me clicked. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't random. This was calculated. This was personal. And I was about to learn exactly how deep his obsession with me went. Lauren's message came on a random Tuesday night while I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at the useless security camera I hadn't gotten around to taking down yet. I saw her name pop up on my phone and almost ignored it. We hadn't talked since she grabbed the rest of her clothes and left our place in March. But the preview text froze me. You need to see this. It's about your neighbor. I opened the message and the screenshot hit me like a punch to the ribs. It was a Facebook DM from Mark to Lauren, sent 2 hours earlier. He'd written, "He still thinks you left him because the relationship wasn't working, right? He has no idea I helped it along. He'll never know." My vision tunneled. I scrolled down. There was more. "He's too easy to manipulate. I just pushed a little. Told you some things to make you question him. Told him some things to make him question you. I wanted him isolated. It worked. Isolated." My stomach twisted so hard I had to put the phone down. But I couldn't stop reading. "He watches me all the time. You saw that too, right? How he looks at my house. I had to do something. I wasn't going to let him become a threat." A threat. The same word he used in court. Then the last part, the part that took my breath away. "Once he's legally blocked from recording outside, he'll slip up. Guys like him always do. Then I'll handle the rest." Handle the rest. My hands actually shook. Lauren must have seen I read it, because she started typing. "Lauren, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was lying. I didn't know he was manipulating both of us. I thought you were pulling away from me. He fed me everything. He said you talked about me behind my back. He said you thought I was a burden. I only realized he was sick when he started sending these messages. I wanted to be angry at her. I wanted to yell. But mostly, I just felt this overwhelming nausea, the kind you get when you've been living in a story you didn't realize someone else was writing for you. I messaged her back, why would he do this?" Her answer came instantly. "Lauren, because he wanted you alone. He said it outright last month. He said he'll be easier to break once she's gone." Break, not annoy, not escalate, break. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Every moment from the past 6 months snapped into place like a sick puzzle. The scratches on my car, the weird looks, the tension after Lauren moved out, the smashed camera, the restraining order. He didn't hate me. He wasn't paranoid. He wasn't scared of being filmed. He was fixated. He'd been engineering my life behind the scenes, piece by piece, pushing me into isolation like it was some kind of project. But the worst part wasn't what he did to me. It was what he did to Lauren. Because attached at the bottom of the DM thread was something I didn't expect, a voice note. 10 seconds long, I tapped it. And I heard his voice, low, smug, almost excited, saying, "He has no idea you and I have been talking about him for months. I told you I always get what I want, just wait." My skin crawled. Months before she left me. Before we even started fighting. She thought he was just a concerned neighbor. She thought he meant well. She thought I was drifting away. She didn't know he was planting every doubt in her mind like seeds. He had taken something intimate, the slow death of a relationship, and turned it into a weapon. And then it clicked all at once. He had confessed. In writing. In detail. And he accidentally sent it to the wrong person. He meant to send it to someone else entirely. And when I realized who he meant to send it to and why, everything inside me went ice cold. Because the real betrayal wasn't the manipulation. It wasn't the restraining order. It wasn't breaking up my relationship. The real betrayal was still coming. And he had already laid the groundwork. And I was about to copy that DM, every word of it, to someone who could burn his whole world down. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at my kitchen table with the lights off, staring at my phone, replaying those messages and voice notes over and over. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face in that courtroom, that smug, satisfied calm, like he already knew how everything would play out. But now I had something he never planned for. Proof he admitted to manipulating me, my ex, and the entire situation. Proof he wasn't scared of me, he was hunting me. The question wasn't whether to use it. The question was how. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became who the DM was actually meant for. Not Lauren, not some friend, not even a random person. He'd been messaging a woman he'd met online, a woman he'd been bragging to for weeks about putting a man in his place. Someone he was trying to impress. Someone who apparently liked aggressive guys. Someone he thought would adore the whole story. That's who those DMs were for. And when I scanned through the thread, it hit me like cold water. He'd been sending her videos. Pictures. Screenshots of me. Things he shouldn't have had. Angles he couldn't have gotten from his property. That's when I realized he had been recording me the whole time, probably long before he accused me of recording him. And he wasn't just sending them to some random woman. He was sending them to a woman in Indiana, across state lines. Which meant one thing: cyber harassment and voyeurism across state lines equals federal interest. I felt something shift inside me, like fear slowly burning into determination. If he wanted this to be a legal game, fine, I'd play, but I'd play better, so I made a plan. A simple one. A clean one. Step 1. Gather every piece of evidence. I copied the screenshots, the voice note, the timestamps, the full DM thread. I exported everything into a single PDF with a timeline and labeled sections. Step 2. Back it up in multiple places. One on a flash drive, one on cloud storage, one emailed to myself, one sent to Lauren just in case. Step 3. Contact the right people, not the local cops who brushed me off. I thought about sending it to the judge. I thought about going through civil court. But this wasn't a civil issue anymore. This was stalking, manipulation, fabricated evidence, destruction of property, and recording someone without permission. All wrapped in a confession he wrote with his own fingers. I knew exactly who to send it to. 1. His employer, because his job required a clean record and strict behavior guidelines. 2. The prosecutor's office, specifically the one handling domestic and stalking cases. 3. Facebook's legal department, because unsolicited, non-consensual recordings violated platform policies. 4. And one more place, the one I knew would terrify him the most. The place where crossing state lines with harassment gets flagged instantly. But before I sent anything, I wanted to make sure he couldn't twist it, couldn't spin it, couldn't erase it, so I waited. I waited until he was outside the next day, watering his stupid patchy lawn like nothing in the world could touch him. He looked up at my window, saw the blinds shift, and smirked like he owned my fear. And that was the last time he would ever smirk at me. Because I walked back to the table, sat down, opened the email draft, attached the file, and typed the first address. But I didn't stop there. I copied the DM to someone he never expected. Someone whose involvement would shift the ground under his feet and expose everything he'd been hiding. Someone whose name alone would destroy every ounce of control he thought he had. And when I hit send, I knew exactly what was coming next. He had broken my camera. He had broken my peace. He had broken my relationship. Now I was about to break him. When I hit send, I expected fallout. I expected anger. I expected panic. I expected some kind of reaction from Mark loud enough to hear through the walls. But what happened next was something I never saw coming. Because the person I forwarded his confession to, the one name I knew would gut him, wasn't just his employer or the prosecutor or some agency. It was his brother. Not just any brother. Detective Ryan Keaton. Cincinnati Police Department. Domestic Violence and Stalking Unit. I didn't even know Mark had a brother until I dug through his online footprint at 3 a.m., and once I found the connection, my jaw hit the floor. Ryan had an ironclad reputation, spotless service record, commendations, community awards, the whole deal. The exact opposite of Mark in every possible way. They weren't close. They weren't even speaking. In fact, the last public interaction between them was an argument Ryan had commented on 2 years earlier, calling Mark reckless and unstable. But here's the twist. Ryan had been the one who testified in a case last year involving a neighbor falsely accused of harassment, a case that looked weirdly similar to mine. Mark wasn't just spiraling. He was copying a pattern his own brother had fought against in court. So when I sent the DM thread, the manipulation, the confession, the voice note, the stalking, I expected Ryan to contact the police. Instead, he contacted me. He called 2 hours later. I didn't recognize the number, but I picked up anyway. His voice was firm, professional, but under it was something sharp and controlled, like a man forcing himself not to explode. "Is this the neighbor Mark's been fixating on?" he asked. Fixating, not harassing, not bothering. Fixating, he already knew. I confirmed who I was, and he let out a slow breath, the kind that carries years of frustration. "I've been waiting for something like this," he said. "I just didn't know when it would surface." That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" I asked. And that's when he dropped the twist that made everything snap into brutal clarity. "Mark has a history of fabricating threats," Ryan said. "He's done it to coworkers. He did it to a former roommate. He did it to an ex-girlfriend. He escalates until the other person snaps or gets cornered. Then he plays the victim. It's a pattern, a dangerous one." I leaned back in the chair, feeling the weight of every word. He continued, "I tried to stop him years ago. My family did too, but he always finds a new target. Someone he can convince himself is the enemy." Then he said the part I'll never forget. "I need you to understand something. You're not the first, but you're the first one who might finally end this." My throat tightened. Before I could respond, he added, "I'm coming by tomorrow, not in uniform. I need to talk to you in person. And no matter what happens, do not confront him, do not speak to him, do not engage. He escalates when he feels exposed." When the call ended, I sat there in complete silence. I thought I understood Mark. I thought I knew why he targeted me. I thought this was about a camera or territory or paranoia. But now there was a deeper, darker pattern, one that stretched far beyond me. This wasn't random. This wasn't new. This wasn't even about the restraining order. This was who he was. And whatever Detective Keaton knew, whatever history he wasn't saying over the phone, it was big enough to make him drive across Cincinnati just to warn me. But what I didn't know yet, what I couldn't know, was that Mark had already realized someone accessed his DMs. And he wasn't planning to wait. He was planning to make his move that night. Detective Ryan showed up the next morning at 9 a.m. sharp. Plain clothes, no badge showing. He looked nothing like Mark, calmer, steadier, like someone who'd spent years holding other people's chaos together. We sat at my kitchen table, the same place I had read every sick line of Mark's confession. Ryan didn't waste time. He opened a folder, slid a couple of pages toward me, and said quietly, "I need you to understand what you're dealing with." The documents were police reports, not from Cincinnati, from Indiana. From a town barely an hour from where that woman he'd been messaging lived. 2 different addresses. 2 different victims. One was a former roommate. The other was a woman who lived next door to him. Both reports said the same thing. He created a problem that didn't exist, then escalated it until the other person broke down. Not random harassment. Not petty disputes. A pattern. But the second page, the last victim, made my blood run cold. Because the woman he targeted in Indiana had described exactly what I was living through. He isolated her from friends by feeding lies to her partner. He damaged her property, then acted offended when she confronted him. He convinced neighbors she was mentally unstable. He filed a harassment complaint against her based on manufactured evidence. He became obsessed with watching her routines when she left, when she came home, when she slept. And then the worst part. He told police he felt threatened, which triggered a temporary no-contact order against her. She'd been silenced in her own home, just like me. "Did anything happen to her?" I asked. Ryan hesitated, the kind of hesitation that already tells you the answer. "She moved out," he said. 3 weeks later." Then, quieter, "She's still dealing with the aftermath." I felt sick. "Why?" I asked. "Why does he do this? What does he get out of it?" Ryan looked me dead in the eyes, and what he said next didn't sound angry. It sounded exhausted, the kind of exhaustion that comes from watching the same horror repeat over and over. "Because destroying someone else gives him control," he said. "He doesn't want friends, he doesn't want relationships, he wants power, and he only feels powerful when he's dismantling someone he's fixated on." He tapped the file. "He studies people, he learns their routines, he finds their soft spots. Then he takes something from them, their peace, their relationships, their credibility, piece by piece." My chest tightened. Ryan kept going. "He doesn't lash out randomly. He builds it, quietly, patiently. He manufactures tension until the other person reacts or until they lose something important. Your camera, that wasn't a moment of anger, that was strategy. He wanted the restraining order. He wanted you blind." I stared at the table. All the weird little moments with Mark suddenly shifted into focus, not as annoyances, not as paranoia, but steps in a plan. He didn't target you because you annoyed him, Ryan said. He targeted you because you were stable, predictable, grounded, someone he could dismantle piece by piece. A chill crawled up my spine. But why get involved with Lauren? I asked. Why break us up? Ryan didn't even blink. Because he has to separate you from anything that gives you support, he said. He can't destabilize you if someone else is in your corner. Isolation is his first move. It wasn't jealousy, it wasn't randomness, it wasn't some misunderstanding. It was cruelty, calculated, layered, systematic. He doesn't stop, Ryan added. Not until he feels like he's won. Not until you break, and he was very, very close with you. I swallowed hard. So what happens now? Ryan folded his hands. Now we document everything, and then we expose him. But before I could answer, there was a loud knock at the door, sharp, aggressive, too familiar. Ryan looked at me with alarm and whispered, "Do not open it." Another knock, harder. Then Mark's voice muffled through the wood, "I know you've been in my messages." Cold washed through my veins. He wasn't supposed to know. He wasn't supposed to confront me. Not now, not yet. Ryan motioned for me to stay silent, but Mark didn't wait. He kept talking, and what he said next made my blood turn to ice. "I told you I'd break you," he said. "And I'm not even close to finished." Ryan stood up slowly, motioning for me to stay behind him. He didn't draw a weapon, he wasn't here as a cop, just as someone who knew exactly what Mark was capable of. But the shift in his posture was enough to tell me he was ready for whatever came next. Mark kept pounding on the door, each hit harder than the last. "You think you're smart," he shouted. "You think you can go through my stuff and get away with it." Ryan moved toward the window beside the door, just enough to see out without being seen. He watched for maybe 3 seconds before turning back to me with a look that was part disgust, part relief. "He's recording this," he whispered. "He's trying to bait you. Stay quiet." And that was the first moment I finally understood how close I'd come to falling into the trap again, the same cycle he'd used with everyone else. Mark didn't want to scare me, he wanted evidence. Fake evidence. Something he could twist into proof that I was the aggressor. He kept yelling, kept performing, kept trying to push the situation into his narrative. But Ryan had seen this show before. He pulled out his phone, filmed everything quietly from the side window, Mark threatening me, Mark stating outright that he knew about the DMs, which he shouldn't have had access to if everything he swore to in court was true, and Mark admitting, out loud, that he intended to break me. Eventually, Mark stormed off the porch, probably thinking I was terrified inside. He didn't know what was coming. He didn't know that this time he had given us everything. As soon as he was back in his house, Ryan let out a breath. "That's it," he said. "That's enough." And then the real revenge started. Ryan took the DM file I had prepared, the confession, the screenshots, the timeline, everything, and added what he had just recorded. He wrote a statement detailing Mark's pattern, the similarities to the Indiana cases, and the manipulation he recognized instantly. He didn't submit it to the police department. He didn't submit it to the judge. He didn't submit it to some random clerk. He submitted it directly to the county prosecutor, the same office that handles ongoing restraining order abuse, stalking behavior, digital harassment, and destruction of property. Then he submitted the entire packet to Mark's employer's HR department, which had strict codes of conduct about criminal investigations. Then, and this was the part that changed everything, he forwarded everything to the Indiana investigators who handled Mark's previous case. One of them recognized the pattern immediately and reopened the file, requesting a full review. Within 48 hours, the fallout began. I wasn't even the one who got the first call. Mark did. His employer suspended him pending investigation. Then a detective from his own county showed up at his door, not to arrest him yet, but to inform him that the restraining order he filed was under review for fraudulent claim and perjury. 2 more days passed. And then Mark was the one standing in court. Not me, him. This time, the entire dynamic flipped. My recording ban was lifted immediately. My original camera rights were restored. The judge openly questioned his credibility after reading the confession. Ryan's testimony sealed it. Mark's restraining order was thrown out. My case against him for property damage and harassment was allowed to move forward. and the judge handed him a no-contact order, one that he had to obey for the next 2 years. When the hearing ended, he tried to stare me down again. But I wasn't scared this time. He looked smaller, angry, cornered, exposed. A predator without control. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something smart, but a bailiff stepped between us and told him to move. For the first time, he did. Quietly. Almost like he finally understood he wasn't the one holding the strings anymore. He moved out 3 weeks later. No goodbye, no apology, just a for sale sign on his lawn and a U-Haul truck that showed up at sunrise. Ryan checked in with me once after that, just to let me know that Indiana formally reopened their investigation and that the woman he tormented there had been notified. She cried when she heard he was finally facing consequences. As for me, I put my new security cameras up the day after he left. 6 of them, all legal, all perfectly within my rights. For the first time in months, my home felt like my home again. And every time I walk past the spot where my old camera used to be, the one he smashed, I feel that slow, steady, quiet satisfaction in my chest. He wanted to break me. Instead, he broke his own life apart. Smile for the camera, Mark.